at the Mortgage Business Expo with Ross Turrell from CHL Mortgages. How are you doing, Ross?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
Pleased to hear. So, how do you see the complex buy-to-let market developing in next year?
Okay, that's a good question. What we've seen over the last 5 years, a number of changes occurring in the private rental sector that's affected the landlords, ranging from taxation, regulation, and of course, in the more recent times with the COVID, that has affected landlords. So I think particularly the more professional landlords, the experienced landlords will be looking to try and get back and improve their profitability and restore their profit. And I think they'll do that in a number of ways. If you bear in mind the demand that we have still in this country for accommodation, particularly affordable accommodation, particularly from that age group, 25 to 35, that want reasonable accommodation but want affordable accommodation. So I think we'll see more shared accommodation coming through, where the larger houses will be split into smaller units. A lot of extensions will be going on. The more tenants that the landlord can get into the property, of course, the more rental return they will get, so that will restore a lot of the profitability for them. Other areas we're seeing a big increase, and again this sort of stems from the taxation, and that's the limited company lending, where the buy-to-let landlord will incorporate and use a limited company structure, and some of those are becoming more complex, and I think that will continue into 2022.
Okay. So do you expect the permitted development rules to provide opportunities for landlords to expand their portfolios?
I think, again, the permitted developments have been in for some time. There's been some recent changes to those. And the one thing I would say is for the landlords, look, get expert advice, particularly from the architects, local architects, because some of the local authorities will have differing rules, so it won't be the same across the board. But again, when you're looking at the landlords tying that in with increasing their return, improving their assets, we'll see a lot of them typically will buy property, they'll be extendable, that they can develop, and also with their existing portfolio, because the housing stock is pretty short at the moment. They will develop into the loft is very common, and also doing rear extensions where they can add extra rooms, where of course that then increases the rental return, and it also increases the asset value. And I think another aspect that we will see, the remote working has suddenly become very commonplace over the last 18 months, and the need for that office space living at home will be in demand, and I think we'll see a lot more extra rooms being created to account for that.
Okay. So what tips would you give brokers who wish to write more complex buy-to-let business?
Well, I think there's two aspects to it. Firstly, it's vital they know their customers. So make sure they know which customers are looking to expand their portfolios, which ones have got the expertise in managing the more complex type of properties where you've got multiple tenants. And then it's also they need to become an expert. And it doesn't mean that they need to know everything, but what does help is if they know who knows. It's a good time for them to foster relationships with accountants, stroke tax advisors, solicitors. Those guys will know how to set up the limited companies and the various tax advantages and disadvantages with that aspect. Solicitors as well, when they're purchasing more complex properties where there's various leasehold, freehold parts of the building, they need expert advice. And that's, as I mentioned earlier, the architects, builders, they'll all know, how they can add value for their clients to those customers.
Okay, so what feedback have you received from brokers since your launch earlier in the year? And which area of your product range has proved the most popular?
Okay, so two parts to that. Firstly, in terms of the response, it's been fantastic, overwhelmingly positive. We know a lot of brokers, although we've relaunched, we're not a new lender. We've been around since the late 90s, one of the early buy-to-let lenders. So we've been around, got a lot of expertise still within the business. And a lot of the brokers that we're dealing with, particularly the ones that are well established, they've got existing customers still with us. We've still got a 4 billion mortgage back book, so we're not insignificant. So yeah, it's been a really positive response. We've got some good BDMs, very experienced BDMs that are well known within the industry, and that's helped as well. In terms of the offering that we've got, the rates and the criteria have been very well received. The online portal, very positive feedback for the ease of use of that. So all in all, it's gone pretty well.
That's great. Thank you very much for your time, Ross.